Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, President Rodrigo Duterte extends the enhanced community quarantine in Cebu City while Metro Manila remains under the general community quarantine in the next 15 days. After criticisms on the government strategy, Malacañang insists the country is winning in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. And over a week left before the anti-terrorism bill lapses into law, the United Nations Human Rights Council is urging the president not to sign the anti-terrorism bill. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque joins us live. Well, it's status quo for the two critical areas in the country. President Rodrigo Duterte announces the extension of the enhanced community quarantine in Cebu City and the general community quarantine in Metro Manila until July 15. 11 other areas will also be placed under GCQ, while the rest of the country will fall under modified GCQ. The president says disobedience is a factor why numbers have spiked in Cebu City. So he urges residents there, particularly those he described as stubborn, to shape up. Here's the president in his own words.
Na kamong mga Cebuano, masuko mo ingon ko gahi mo ulo. Actually, ayaw mo ka-insulto kay Cebuano ko. I am a Cebuano. I come from Danao, Cebu. Ka mga Bisaya talaga, baski sa Davao, yung mga Bisaya doon, ang titigas talaga ng ulo, hindi mo pasunod. You want me to say what I feel? I am sad and I am para akong nawalaan ng hangin dito.
Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have presidential spokesperson Harry Roque. Secretary Roque, hi. Welcome to the show,
Good morning.
sir.
Good morning, Pinky. It's always a privilege. Good morning, Philippines.
All right. Maraming salamat, Secretary. I know you're very tired from last night. So let's start with this. Obviously, the president said really the two big things is that Cebu City still under enhanced community quarantine and Metro Manila or NCR still under general community quarantine. Just tell us the thought process, Secretary Roque, why he decided to keep Cebu under ECQ and Metro Manila under GCQ, sir.
Well, it's all science and data driven, no? For you to be able to be on GCQ, your case doubling rate must at least be 7 days. And that's where Metro Manila is. We are still on 7 days case doubling rate. 2 weeks ago, we barely made it to 7. And that's why I said we were pasang awa to GCQ. No? But now we're now at 7. So, we can't go any further than GCQ, but we remain at GCQ. For us to be MGCQ, the case doubling rate must be around 10, no? Or thereabouts, no? 10 days doubling rate, no? But Cebu City, well, to begin with, they have a case positivity rate of 30%. That means 3 of them being tested for the coronavirus has tested positive, no? And in addition to that, the death rate is almost the same as the national death rate for coronavirus. Now, we are more or less around 10 or less on a national basis, but Cebu recorded yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, 13 deaths, which is equivalent to the national average. No, and that is why the president heeded also the recommendation not only of the IATF but of General Simatu, Secretary Simatu, whom he sent there to be his personal envoy, no, to exercise what he said was critical thinking on what should be done with Cebu City. So I would like to assure the residents of Cebu, para po sa kapakanan nyo yan, at yan po ay dahil po sa datos na napakabilis pa ang pagkalat ng sakit po dyan sa Cebu City at napakataas po ng porsyento ng populasyon na meron pong coronavirus, 3 out of 10 testing positive.
Sabi po ni
Hello.
Pangulo Secretary Roque, kung gusto niyo ako maging honest, ang sabi po niya, matitigas daw kasi yung ulo at he is saddened by this, sabi niya.
Well, there was even a report that even as Cebu City is an ECQ, may isang barangay na nagsinulog, no? So of course, the barangay captain will be given due process, pero yan po yung isang example siguro ng sinasabi ng Presidente na matigas ang ulo, no? And he also had access to intelligence report, no, in a place like Talisay, na parang, as the President described, even if they were on MECQ, parang palengke daw yung streets of Talisay, no? So, pero alam niyo naman, si President did not mince words because he feels that he can do so since he's also from Cebu City. And from my personal point of view, Cebu, I consider myself also a Cebuano. Alam mo kasi, ang mga Cebu talaga fun-loving. The moment you step out of the plane in Cebu, there's this party spirit, no? You can feel it right away. That's why I love Cebu, no? Pero siguro sa mga panahon na may pandemya, medyo we should tame our party spirit and medyo stay home, be homeliners, and observe social distancing, wearing masks, dahil para naman po sa kapakanan din na yan.
Yeah, and I think it was also Secretary Simatu, Sec Roque, who said last night that maybe there will be a couple of barangays, if I'm not mistaken, siguro 12 daw out of 80 barangays that might have to go on a more strict lockdown.
Yes, well, actually, we debated whether or not to broadcast the 12 barangays, and we did not really want to actually panic the rest of Cebu City, no? But there is one barangay where they have more than 130 cases, Pinky, no? And this is something that we have not really seen
Dami
here
nun, sir.
in Metro Manila, no? But one barangay with in excess of 130 cases. So obviously, in addition to ECQ, we will have to rely on granular lockouts. And again, I reiterate, we really would require the full cooperation of Cebuanos.
And of course, this is for the next 2 weeks up for re-evaluation again. Secretary Roque, nagkaroon ho ba ng some considerations for NCR? Because, of course, there's talk. Either we stay as status quo po tayo, maghigpit po tayo, o kaya maging mas relaxed from GCQ to MGCQ.
Well, as I said nga po, yung case doubling rate kasi natin, we're just at 7. And 2 weeks ago, we were barely at 7. No? So again, I'd like to appeal to our fellow residents of Metro Manila. We're not exactly powerless against the virus. No, it has been said by the DOH that the wearing of masks will reduce the probability of getting the virus by as much as 85%. Social distancing can reduce the probability by as much as 80%. Coupled with constant hand washing, the use of disinfectants, we can prevent the further spread of this disease. No. So we need to have behavioral changes to win this war against COVID-19.
Right. I remember you kept saying that yesterday in your press briefing at 12:30, sir. But was there a move from any members of the cabinet to actually relax Metro Manila, sir?
Well, not specifically on Metro Manila, but there was a presentation made by Secretary Dominguez arguing that we need now to shift from priority on health to opening the economy, because unless we do so, people will simply die because of lack of livelihood. No? And that is why the new worldview should be we should still be wary of the disease, but with testing, tracing, and treatment coupled with minimum hygiene requirements, we can proceed and open the economy, because we cannot afford to keep it closed anymore. Otherwise, people will simply go bankrupt. No? And I think that was approved in principle, and that is why for as long as the data would allow it, even if it's not fully compliant, perhaps for as long as there is substantial compliance with the data, we will allow the further downgrading to MGCQ to further open up the economy. Now, in the study presented by Secretary Dominguez, no, it appears that even in MGCQ, the economy is not open at 100%, and with transport restrictions, an MGCQ would actually open around 50 to 60% of the economy only. No? And that is why the fourth strategy recommended and approved in principle by the IATF is that we need to further open up the transport sector, because unless the transport sector is fully opened up, then people simply can't get to work. No? And in line with this, the economic team also urged government to use scientific evidence to evaluate whether or not jeepneys really pose a threat to health. No? And there is now a technical working group looking into this. No? So we are entering a new phase now. It's a realization that we need to proceed with opening up of the economy for people to literally survive and not just die from the disease. And in order to do that, we need to improve testing capacity to bolster the confidence of workers to go back to work. We need to trace, we need to treat, we need to have behavioral changes, and of course, transport sector should be open.
Very quickly, Sec Roque, before we go on a break, does this mean that possibly in the next 2 weeks there could be, within HASR, the next 2 weeks, there could be a reevaluation of NCR?
There will always be reevaluations every 2 weeks. The question is whether or not Metro Manila will have sufficient behavioral change to warrant MGCQ. Now, it has been done by other provinces. It used to be that Metro Manila and the entire of Calabarzon were on GCQ. And together, Metro Manila and Calabarzon constitute 64% of the gross domestic product, not the GDP. But lately, Batangas and Laguna, as well as Quezon, are now on MGCQ. And only Rizal and Cavite and Calabarzon were left in GCQ. So it can be done. No? In the same way that perhaps in Metro Manila, people should just be more conscious of the need for social distancing and wearing of masks. And I think there will be substantial, the government will recognize substantial compliance, because in view of stricter quarantine, we would go in favor of granular lockdowns, which is happening now in many parts of Metro Manila.
Okay. Are we really winning the fight against the coronavirus pandemic? Netizens also react on Secretary Roque's "Congratulations, Philippines" remark. I'm sure alam na po yan ni Secretary Roque. We'll be taking a short break. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Welcome back to The Source. Our guest today, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque. So, sir, I'm sure you've seen some reactions on social media about you basically congratulating the Philippines. You said, wala na po, panalo na tayo. We beat the UP prediction. We beat it. So congratulations, Philippines. Let's do it again in July. You might want to further explain this, sir.
Well, I think the context is very clear. Now, the context is UP forecasted that we would have 40,000 cases. And as of yesterday, the last day of July, the final figure reported by the Department of Health was 37. It's a small victory, but I think it's the first time that we actually did not realize the forecast of UP. They have been perfectly accurate in their forecasting of how many cases we would have at the end of the month. No? And as far as I know, this is the first time that we missed it, not by much, but we still missed it. No? And my point being, as I said earlier, we're not powerless. We have the armaments to win this war against COVID, social distancing, wearing of masks. And I think the people should be congratulated, because even if it's a margin of only about under 3,000, we still did not reach what the forecast of UP was, that we would have 40,000 cases. And I think every month now, I'm going to keep on doing it. And I really don't care about the critics, because I think people should be reminded that although there are mathematical models, we could still control what happens in our lives. And it's as simple as observing minimum health standards and certainly avoiding what happened in CCP, where people congregated, and avoiding what happened in Cebu, where people had held the sinulog, despite that the fact that there was an ongoing ECQ in the city. No? So I will could keep on doing it, because it's the only way we can encourage people to beat the disease. No? Yes, I will. I will keep on exhorting people to observe social distancing. Pagdating ng July, as early as now, I think we should do it together.
60,000.
Wag na tayong magpaabot ng 60,000. If at all, we should aim that the number should not reach even 50,000. No? And we can do it even if we reopen the economy by, number one, employers allowing 50% of the economy from home, and then everyone else observing minimum health standards. We can do it. Let's aim, in fact,
Okay,
not to reach
so
50,000.
bumaba ka pa, sir, sa 60,000. So,
Oo,
some of
bumababa ako.
those that were
I'm being
seen on
very
social
ambitious,
media,
but I think,
uh,
yeah, I think people can do it.
may,
I'm being ambitious.
mm-mm.
Let's do it, people. Let's do it.
Okay, so some of the tweets, sir, I just want to bring this in. You have Luis Manzano saying, akala ko the whole time, COVID ang kalaban, UP pala. Congratulations.
Well, mali po ang pagkaintindi ni Luis Menzano. Ang kalaban talaga COVID. Siguro parang ringside commentator itong UP na sinasabi nila ang magiging score ay 40,000. So, yun lang po. Konting intindi lang po.
Okay. Something we need to discuss, though, Secretary Roque, because I know that there are data that you have repeated over time and time again, case doubling rate, mortality rate, critical care capacity, sir. But when we look at the numbers, okay, we're at over 37,000, but I believe yesterday, sir, we had 858 fresh cases. That's the highest, sir, in a single day. So if we were to look at 858 cases, sir, the highest in a single day, does that still mean, are we still to believe, or are you still to tell us that we are winning the fight against COVID, sir?
Yes, but you need to look at other figures, including positivity rate. You know, it's the fact that we will continue to have more cases is because we're also having more testing now. We're now hitting 16,000, 17,000 tests a day, no? And we're aiming to hit 32,000. And when we do hit 32,000, there will be more cases. But what's important is the positivity rate. Positivity is how many of those tested actually test positive, no? And the lower the number, the better. Although the benchmark is around 12, no? Meaning that the WHO still feels that it is acceptable for 12 out of 100 to test positive, so that's still manageable. But right now we're doing 7, 100.
Secretary Roque, we're losing you again, sir.
But as long as
We'll
the death
probably
rates are
have to take
declining,
a break.
yes.
Ayan.
Yeah. For as long as
Sir,
mortality
pasensya na
or yung
nawala
death
kayo
rate,
kanina, no?
nawala. Again, let me repeat, no? So what's important
Go
is
ahead,
the
sir. I can hear you now.
positivity rate. How many actually test positive out of 100, and the death rates, no? I think we're still okay, no? And that's why the numbers, in fact, will grow bigger as we test more, and for as long as there's no antidote and no vaccine. Yes.
Okay,
So
but there was something I read, sir, this needs to be clarified further. When you talk about positivity rate, I think, sir, in June 28, we were at 9.9%. And you're saying there is probably not a standard, but we're still good, you said, at 12 or 13%. The day before that, it was at 9.6%. In other words, in June 27, the positivity rate was 9.6. The day after June 28, it was 9.9. What that means to me, sir, is obviously tumataas po yung positivity rate. But it's still below what you're saying, which should be 12 or 13.
Yes, and in fact, you look at the average too, not just the daily rate. So you look at the moving 7-day average, no, and that's where we are scoring 6 to 7 per 100.
On a weekly basis, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
Over a period of time.
All right. So also, just very quickly, Sec Roque, just a reaction from Senator Risa Ontiveros. Hindi natin matatalo ang pandemya kung di tayo magiging honest sa mga sarili natin. Paano tayo winning kung may 36,000? Yun po yung kanyang text, kanyang sinabi pa kahapon. Kaso na COVID-19, may 7.3 milyong Pilipinong walang trabaho at kulang pa tayo sa proteksyon at suporta ng mga doktor at health workers, sir.
Well, unang-una, mali po yung ating basihan, no? Kasi unang-una, wala naman talagang inag-expect na magkakaroon tayo ng ganitong pandemya. Pero siguro, kumpara rin natin yung mga ginagawa natin dito kung ano nangyayari sa rest of the world, no? Nag-correct naman po ang WHO and they have apologized for their statement that we have the fastest growing number of COVID cases in the Western Pacific. That's not true. And I showed it in my press conference, no? Na the analysis should be based on the proportion of individuals per million. No? And clearly, we're not on top if it's on a per million basis.
Population.
I-compare po natin yung ating 1,300 something na deaths sa mga hundreds of thousands of deaths reported in places like America, in places like Spain, in places like Italy, no? So parang unless you compare how we perform with the rest of the world, you compare yung mga iba pang indicators, and there would be no way we could conclude na panalo tayo, no? Kung ang gagamitin natin yung basihan lamang ay yung number of cases, no? Na pagdating po sa nawalan ng trabaho, talaga naman po
Alright.
sa worldwide phenomena. Wala po talagang nanalo laban sa COVID-19 pagdating sa ekonomiya. Talaga pong walang bansa na hindi naapektuhan. Marami po talaga nawalan ng trabaho. Kaya nga po ang panawagan natin, isang tabi muna yung politika at tayo po ay we should act as one because in the end, we are confident that we will heal as one and we will recover as one.
Secretary Roque, moving on to another subject. The UN Rights Chief yesterday presented her report on the situation in the Philippines. And I quote, she said, the findings of the report were very serious. Law and policies to counter national security threats and illegal drugs have been crafted and implemented in ways that severely impact human rights. They have resulted in thousands of killings, arbitrary detentions, and the vilification of individuals who challenge these severe human rights violations. Let me just add, sir, before you react. She even said that human rights defenders are routinely smeared as terrorists and enemies of this state. Just a reaction on that, Secretary Roque.
Well, I think we have adequately responded to that. No country can claim a perfect record as far as human rights is concerned. Again, benchmark should be the United States. I'm sure the special rapporteurs on equality have equally bad things to say about the United States. The rapporteurs on the rights of refugees have equally bad things to say about Australia, and don't even mention countries like Israel, no? And of course, Europe now faces challenge as far as refugees coming from Africa are concerned, no? So it's not a perfect world for human rights. But what is important is where there are atrocities or acclaimed violations of human rights, that the burden of the state to investigate and punish the perpetrators thereof are in fact complied with. And as far as the Philippines is concerned, Secretary Maynard Guevara has said that in an effort to improve our capacity to investigate and punish the perpetrators
Right.
of human rights violators, we have created an interagency body headed by the DOJ, no?
Interagency
to look
panel.
into each and every case of alleged killing. No? Now, having said that, as part of the police manual of the PNP, they are duty bound, in fact, to investigate when there is the loss of life as a result of police, a police investigation. No? And I'm confident, having worked with the PNP chief Gamboa, no, that this has in fact been done by the PNP. But nonetheless, the interagency response is necessary to assure the country and the international community of the partiality of investigation of these deaths arising from police operations.
And here comes the issue, sir, on the anti-terrorism bill. She further said this heightens concern about the blurring distinction between criticism, criminality, and terrorism, in fact, urging the president not to sign this. My question, Secretary Roque, is would this be considered? Would this statement be considered by President Rodrigo Duterte?
Authorized in Singapore and 3-month detention authorized in other jurisdictions. I reiterate, I was part of a Cambridge study on anti-terror laws, and it would seem that it is the developed countries that have more draconian laws. The U.S. has the Patriot Act. The U.K. has also an anti-terror law that will approximate more or less the terms and provisions of the new anti-terror law. And I understand that the framers of the law, the authors of the law, in fact, looked at the European legislation as model in drafting this law. So I think the view of the High Commissioner for Human Rights has to be taken in the context of other existing anti-terror legislation, and I'm sure that the studies will confirm that we are at par with the rest of the developed world, in fact, and not just with the developing countries.
Secretary Roque, we need to take a very short break. We'll be right back.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back to The Source. So, Secretary Roque, what is the update on the anti-terrorism bill? From last I heard, of course, the president was having his legal team. We have a problem with our connection with presidential spokesperson Harry Roque. I wanted to ask about an update on the anti-terrorism bill, but I guess we're going to have to call him back. But we've actually run out of time, so we're going to have to say goodbye for now. Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.